Uh, okay, so I think we are live. Hi everyone, welcome to the second doubt discussion session uh, of the bootcamp. So today as well we have section with us. So I think we can directly begin.
Yeah, okay, great, no worries. Just to check, are we live?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Hello, guys. How's it going so far with the bootcamp? Well, today we have a very special module for you. It's on the hands-on development and going beyond the RAG basics. So till now, I guess everyone uh, gets to know what RAG is, how to augment the knowledge of an LLM or a large language model with your private databases. So Devansh, a quick question to you since you're on stage. Did you get a chance to build a RAG application with Pathway?
Like I have actually used Pathway in past,
Okay.
like before the bootcamp itself.
So what
I
sort of
had
even the participants in the chat channel can say if they've started building the hands-on modules because nowadays people are curious to get to like start with the hands-on session itself rather than going to the theory. So yes, Devansh, you were saying.
yeah. So actually my use case was a little bit different. I wanted to see if you are aware of prompt injection, indirect
Mm-hmm.
prompt injection. Yeah. So my use case for was for that. Like basically I had to show a demo of a certain prompt injection attack that I had created. So for that, I utilized to show the demo. I used a RAG application. So for that, I actually used pathways, uh, like um, repo actually.
Great, great.
Yes.
Yep. So that's really good application where you are checking the prompt injection or various other
Right.
security issues with LLMs and etc.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I got the use case. That's great. So I'll quickly
Okay.
share my screen. Yeah. So today I have a very special module for us planned. It's how to understand RAG beyond the very basics and hands-on module. So quickly telling you about Pathway. So Pathway is all about bringing developer experience, like people like Devansh are building applications on their particular use cases, and it's to work with live enterprise data and drawing insights out of it. So as you know that we have recently ventured into LLM and RAG powered solutions with live enterprise data. And regarding Pathway, it's the fastest data processing engine out there, built on Rust, and it's visible to you via an Python API. So that's a quick introduction about Pathway. So now quickly telling you about what the GenAI hype is not only about the consumer applications, but it's also about transforming various organizations' landscape. So people or even your institution in general are changing ways to search information. Whether it's a professor giving lots of slides and you want to query on your slides, or it's you need to prepare a presentation and you want to get the right information clearly from the research papers, which you might present in a PPT deck. So people are really changing, and there are various use cases where AI can bring results quickly, whether it's summarizing text or it's information retrieval or it's whether connecting to different various APIs or search the web using agentic RAG. There are a lot of things happening in the space. So the second point here says that users organizations are really particular about uh, safety measures, whether the tech stack that you use will fit into their IT guidelines or not. So it's basically going to the correct size of enterprise security, right? And then thirdly, what should a organization's AI tech stack look like? Basically, we saw a tectonic shift from traditional data engineering to new challenges such as data governance, going into the architecture diagrams. It's also ensuring that the organization's uh, cost measures are effective. And we obviously are not missing out on the accuracy, which is the main aim of these RAG applications, and where some of the applications are really struggling because while moving your, let's say, GitHub project to production, you really need to see all these measures. You need to see how I can align my tech stack to my organization's needs. So yeah, quickly going forward, now that you know what LLMs are and you know what RAG is, so quickly briefing about RAG. It's basically augmenting the knowledge of your LLM with your private knowledge databases, and you retrieve the only the that part of information from your documents which are similar, which are semantically similar to what your user query is, and then it goes into the prompt of the LLM alongside the query, and it generates the answer based on that. So now you see that retriever is really an engineering concept rather than going into AI. So it's more of what we do by optimizing the retrieval algorithms, etc. So retrieval is what feeds the data into the LLM, and LLM is the one which generates the answers for us. So quickly moving forward. So we know that there are common LLM and RAG issues in production deployments. Like I said, there might be issues where data ingestion can be quite tricky at scale because you really need to ingest that data. You need to parse that information. You may not always work with PDFs or docs, right? You may need to work with PDFs which contains images, which contains charts, or lots of unstructured data. Where getting into the data engineering aspect uh, of AI is really important. And you obviously need a good real-time data processing engine. Otherwise, your private knowledge database uh, would not get updated automatically, and you'll be querying data over your past data, and it's not new. A more important part where I see people struggling with building projects in production is through data governance and access control. Quickly moving forward to the inaccuracy of the answers, where you know the LLM can hallucinate. Hallucination in general sense means that LLMs are go into the more of the generic side, which they have been trained on over the internet, rather than sticking to what you provided as a private data or as a private medium, which you might want to query on. Also, a very important point here is the third point, which LLM plus RAG solutions, which are built from different components, are not optimized jointly because it's all about end-to-end testing. You might have heard that we are building end-to-end project. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that you are optimizing on one certain component and the components together are not working very appropriately based on your use case. So then it's no use of fine tuning on specific components if those components together don't work well. So that's a very important issue, and we at Pathway like take care in our LLM pipelines and our LLM app repos, which you'll obviously be building in the hands-on session. So what sort of approach you can take? So to be at the forefront of generative AI, it's really about mixing retrievers and LLMs. Like I told, retriever is more sort of an engineering concept, and LLMs you can say it's more fancy AI component. But the two of these need to be designed together. They need to be optimized together so that the retriever gives in the best information to the LLM, and LLM is able to generate the correct answer based on what what the information was retrieved, right? And also on the right hand side of this slide, you can see LLMs and retrievers are complementary. This was a showcase by our CTO at Pathway where he showed that LLM uses a retriever adaptively and reduces the token generation concept, and it reduces the cost by 1/4. So yeah, an interesting use case here. I'll tell you where we build this. You can see various RAG pipelines in this module 5. First, I'll quickly walk you through the first RAG pipeline which you can build, and then we can move on to the Amazon Discounts app, which is a fancy term of connecting Amazon API. And then third is, doing RAG on completely inside Faraday's cage, and it's not moving outside your system. It's like basically downloading models weights and calling through an API, which is handled by a tool named Olama. And then obviously I'll tell you how it can be integrated with LangChain and Llama Index, and how Pathways vector store can be used. So this is the brief overview, but first I'll cover very important aspects of uh, how retrievers and LLMs are complementary to each other. So now quickly moving forward, how to build a live integrated LLM plus RAG architecture. What do I mean by live and integrated? It's basically a combined system. It's not separate components, but it extracts data live and from even multiple data sources, and then we integrate those into the LLM or our RAG application. That's very simple. So there are clearly two steps. First of all, it's more about acquiring knowledge and then using knowledge. By acquiring knowledge, I simply mean the data ingestion step, where for processing the incoming knowledge and indexing of knowledge is used for your use case. First, we need to ingest or parse the PDFs or any other unstructured data source, and then you really need to index that knowledge in terms of the importance of those chunks. And then the second part is using knowledge, where it's more about query answering and then using LLMs to generate answer, which is simply chat over your data, right? So now I want to quickly specify what currently organizations are using, what currently they are using as their tech stack to incorporate generative AI. So first, these architecture diagrams can be very overwhelming, but a clear-cut solution for this is to go through the color coding. Like the purple one means indexing, where is the indexing step. Green is the inference step, where the LLM generates and a completion for you. The yellow step is the fine tuning, which is optional if you want to improve your LLM's responses based on your private knowledge bases. You can instruct the LLM to be fine tuned on a particular prompt template. But we'll not get into more depth of fine tuning here in this course, but it's more about building a RAG application. So basically, each of these red bricks that you see here should be arranged and optimized together, like I said. Otherwise, it's no use. You can go on fine tuning a particular component of the RAG application, but if they don't work together, then it's no use, right? But what Pathway here does is that it's one actual component, it's one piece of code where we define all the bricks together, and if they are, you know, jointly working seamlessly. It's a seamless joint work kind of thing of all these red bricks together. So it's basically all the components are posted into a single Docker container, you can say, or you can say in a single process, which means from ingesting user or enterprise data to answering queries. It's all done in one step. And here, an important note is that you don't need a vector DB to build your RAG application. So now we take the complexity out of your AI stack deployment and we simplify the picture for you and allow you to optimize different parts into a single software rather than you see it as an infrastructure diagram with different components. You see it as a single software license. So now if I say, I'll present you a quick use case which can be deployed in production and it's one of our advanced pipelines, but you can also build and you can see how these use cases are helping sales, marketing, or even people struggling to get their exam preparation done right one day before the exam. If let's say you have lots of slides where a professor has shared on a particular content, then you really need to search on those slide decks that hey, let's say what's this term about? Then it will not only present you with the answer. It's not a chatbot kind of experience, but it retrieves those top 5 or top 6 slides which are related to your query. So it might be helpful for your exams, right? So it's basically the first use case is finding the right slide instantly. Here I'll not tell you more about the chatbot type of experience which you might have heard from various use cases, but here we'll go something advanced. So I'll quickly show you. This is the search demo. You can also try it out. I mean, I'll share it in the chat on the comment sites. You can also try this demo, and obviously you can build this application by yourself. I'll show you the LLM app repo. So here currently the slides which are ready for use is one of the Accenture's PDF on generative AI sessions, and there's a Gartner's GenAI webinar PDF. So let's say I want to search what is GenAI, and if I completely search it, and then it will present me with a 9th slide of the second PDF where it says what generative AI is, and then page 2, which is from the first deck. And here we can optimize for the top K results you want. So you can also filter it based on different categories. This can be done like, let's say in the indexing step, you want to filter out your chunks in respect to certain categories which you can say, right? If a sales or marketing slide deck is about competitive landscape of the company, or it's about customer success stories, then those documents will be indexed together. So it really goes into the tagging of those slides into various categories where it might be easy for you to index and and for the LLM to answer on your query. So this currently is one of our app examples, app templates in the LLM app repository. So I'll say if you like this repo, you completely start it. But if I go into the pipelines here, it's the pipeline slide AI search, you can clearly replicate all these steps. I'll give you a brief overview, a walkthrough of a simple RAG pipeline, but then using that, you can again replicate it on your website and you can build something on this one, where you are building a simple key front end with Streamlit, and you can obviously connect your Drive folder or your SharePoint folder or any other 350 connectors we tell you. You just need to build a connector function, and then you can connect or ingest your data from various unstructured data formats into your application. So that's how this use case is done. You can obviously go through the slides. I'll share the slides deck link as well for you. But quickly moving forward, let's now go to our Gitbook and build projects. Also, you can use our app templates for starters. I mean, these are really cool features where it will show you the theory plus how you can take a step-by-step process into building your uh, RAG applications, right? So this you can see. I'll quickly show this also in the chat so that it's helpful for you. Now, moving forward to the first RAG pipeline, um, it's like you are just starting your process and you are building a RAG pipeline with OpenAI's with GPT 3.5 model from OpenAI and Pathway. In this module, you'll use an in-memory vector store. Like I said, what do I mean by in-memory is that it doesn't index your documents into an external vector database, but it can store it within your memory, within Pathway's vector store, and you need not rely on vector DBs like Pinecone and BB8, which will transfer your vector embeddings to a vector DB. Also, you use a local data source here, which is stored in your computer. You need not use Google Drive or let's say SharePoint here, but you can obviously do that. The choice of LLM here is GPT 3.5, but you can use lots of LLMs like GPT 4o, Claude 3.5, Gemini Pro. We have certain use cases for each one of them for you. So the prerequisites for this includes installing Docker desktop. What is Docker? It's sort of a container where you'll not run into dependency issues. Like you might say that once you do pip install, let's say a particular requirement, then it shows you the error that it's not the correct version or it's not the correct library. Then for that, you really need Docker. You need an open API key from the API key management page. You can click and you can maybe buy $1 or $2 credits. That's not too much. You can obviously need you can get a VS Code Docker extension inside your IDE. Then how does the building with OpenAI looks like? You verify whether your Docker has installed, you git clone a repo, you move into the particular directory, and then you create a .env file where you put in your OpenAI key, and then you build the Docker image. This may take around 10 minutes or 8 minutes of the time, but it's worth the time and effort because it will not allow your PC to run into any dependency issues you might have. So to run the Docker container, basically we mount our data source, which is in the app folder, and then you obviously mention the port. You expose the port and you tell the Docker image name there. And for Linux and Mac, we have other sort of bash commands. And then if let's say your port is already allocated and you have built a lot of projects on 8,000 ports, then you can change it to a different number. So now we interact here, not using a front end because it's a basic RAG pipeline, but you can clearly use HTTP requests, curl commands, to get first what sort of documents you have indexed, and then the last step is to run the RAG service by asking query. Let's say you're querying on a financial contract and you ask what is the start date of the contract, and then the LLM will run. It will say December 21. So going into the intricacies of this project, intricate details, we see what sort of pipeline you have. Like let's say if I move into the repo demo Q&A, then you see clearly that you have these six components in your pipeline organization. There's an app.py which contains the main code. There's the Docker file which you'll build a Docker image based on this file. You'll have a .env file. You have a YAML file where it says you connect to various data sources, how you can connect to them. There's a requirements.txt file installing various dependencies, which will be installed via the Docker image. Yeah. So the running into the code and going into a bit detail here, you can get the pathway license key, but it's not required for this template if you're using one of our advanced pipelines. If you're building those advanced pipelines, let's say slides search, then you may need a demo license key, but it's very easy to get. It's free of cost. Then talking about data sources, here we are using a local data source, and but if you want to use SharePoint, or you let's say you want to use the Google Drive, then you really need those connectors in your pipeline, and you obviously need to change your configure your YAML file in that case. So first of all, here we are using a GPT model. We have imported the OpenAI embedder class from Pathway, or where it will convert the chunks into embeddings. Because once the data is read, then it converts those PDFs into various document chunks, and then it converts into the embeddings, and those embeddings are indexed. And using the OpenAI chat class inside the LLM XPath, you can clearly query it using your simple plain natural language. We use the base question answer class here, but you can use various other RAG question answer classes where it involves, like, let's say if you want to cut your cost and you want to minimize your token generation task, then you can use adaptive RAG question answer class. And these things you can find it in our API docs. It's if you really want to build cool applications and you really don't want to stick to the applications you have built, then you can clearly see various components of the RAG pipelines. Let's say you want to go into the question answer, then if you don't want to use the base question answer class, then you can simply change it here to adaptive question answer class, which has its own, which we have written a class for you guys, and then you can implement it. So what sort of conclusion do I have for you for this repo is that you can still improve this RAG pipeline. People have done that in the past. So students have done that by introducing complex or more advanced steps like knowledge graphs, where you are building relationships into those document chunks and then you are querying. So it's kind of helping the LLM understand the relations between different chunks, and then you're querying based on those chunks. Or you can even include hybrid indexing, where you implement a lexical search plus a vector search kind of algorithm. So that sort of things is, it's completely, if you're capable, you go ahead. We'll be happy to review your projects. So now say if let's say you don't want to use OpenAI and you don't have the credits, and you can build RAG projects with alternate APIs such as Gemini, or other 300 plus LLMs which are present in this light LLM repository. You can see different LLM models from OpenAI, from Anthropic, from Gemini, from Mistral, from Cohere, etc., from Hugging Face as well, right? So here the same prerequisites are there: Docker desktop, etc., and then you see clone the repo demo Q&A, but here you change the app.py with this code, because here I have shown that um, we use a different sort of embedding model which is open source and which is free of cost, because OpenAI embeddings also cost you at the end of the day. and it's using light LLM chat, and we are using basically Gemini model here. You also change the config.yml file. What I mean here is that I'll show you. So instead of using the GPT 3.5 model by OpenAI, you just update it here in this model, and then you build a Docker image, and then you obviously again run the Docker image that you built. And if you have any port issues, you replace the port, and then you obviously query it using curl request. But we'll obviously get into a point where you'll query or tag applications with curl with a UI kind of system, Streamlit. Yeah, I've shown it live, right? If you Vishesh Bhardwaj, I've shown it live how the RAG pipeline works. If that's what you're asking, right? Then we have different set of RAG applications for you where you connect to a rainforest API for real-time Amazon prices, and then you obviously have the discount CSV file with your product and price data. So it's a very cool applications to build with. I mean, you go ahead and replicate the projects, and then if you want to connect to a different API which feeds the real-time information, then Pathway is the way to go, right? You know now that Pathway is good for real-time indexing and stuff. So you can get an API which fetches, let's say, sports data live, sports news live, or current affairs. Then you can connect it to your LLM and you can query based on that. So it's a random example which came to my mind. So now moving forward to the private RAG, I'll show this part through one of the app templates we have. Um, this app template was written by the LLM research engineer at Pathway, and it's that you don't want to move your RAG pipeline outside your Faraday's cage, outside your system, or you don't want to call an API, because certain companies which stick to the IT guidelines, they may not trust OpenAI or other services like Google. So here you really need to see that your data doesn't leave your infrastructure, it doesn't leave your Faraday's cage. And for that, we use something known as private RAG, where we keep your data source within your documents, we keep the model within your computer. And here, two main important things are there. First, Pathway supports real-time data synchronization. That's you can connect your SharePoint or a Google Drive data source, or you can work locally. Here we are using a model Mistral 7B. Mistral 7B is a really great model to start with, but you can replace with a more heavy one depending on your GPU or CPU power of your laptop. Here we are using a tool known as Olama for deploying it locally. So basically, there are these connected data sources. You have Pathway, you have the local LLM Mistral AI, and then you put those, you index those, and then you query using the local LLM. So that, right, like I have said, why you need local LLM? Because there's data privacy risks, there's an accuracy involved that you can obviously get the same accuracy that OpenAI provides with now open source models competing neck to neck with the proprietary ones. For even customization, because you really need to maybe, let's say, fine tune a local LLM based on your use case, then it's the way to go, right? You cannot train a GPT-4 based on your and then call it. So first of all, here we are again using the light LLM class repository class from Pathway, and then we're using sentence transformers for the embedding model. So we load the data. We again build the same pipelines. We import embedders, light LLM chat. We import a particular question answer class from the question answering uh, expats, and then you select various embedding models such as an open source ones which we saw in the Gemini one also, or alternatives to OpenAI. You can use other embedding models, and you can see this leaderboard from Hugging Face where you can see which of those embedding models are performing the best. Yeah, so these models are the best ones based on certain evaluation metrics that Hugging Face has set up. The local deployment here means downloading Olama. and then you in your terminal you set up a Olama terminal for that, and then you query it using a curl command, and then you initialize your LLM. After it says that let what's the story about llamas eating grass, and then it might prompt you with a story or tell me a joke about IIT, about IITs that you really need to work hard even after getting admissions, that sort of thing. Then what's LLM initialization is that you initialize the chat class where you specify the model, you specify the temperature, the top P, it's a generative configuration parameter, and then you specify the format, and then you once you index your documents, and then there's the retriever step and pipeline is execution, right? Let's say, yeah. So basically, at the end of the day, it's ultimately private track setup helps you to build to get your open source LLMs locally and making it ideal for organizations who are really scared or skeptical about closed source models which do not provide their model weights and you cannot train them because of those profit making mindset, right? So that sort of pipeline you can accommodate, and then you can obviously integrate it with Llama Index or LangChain. And this is a tweet by Jerry Liu, the co-founder of Llama Index, that how you can build a live RAG pipeline with Pathway, because mostly we need real-time data sourcing and you don't need static data sources and obsolete data sources. So the Module 6 is the project tracking solution that will be released as per the schedule. Yeah, so that's it from my side. So yes, it's over to you, Devansh. Do
Hmm.
you have any
Uh,
queries?
like I think there were a few queries in the chat. One is from Suraj, I guess. Like he's facing issues with Gemini-based setup. Suraj, can you like provide more details of the exact issue?
Also, please check if your credits have expired or you really need
Right.
to swipe your debit card and get more credits. And also, if you have any sort of queries you're hesitating in this YouTube stream, you can ping me over Discord. You can
Hmm.
ping me or Mudit as well. We don't have an pathway API as per se. So what do you mean, Vishesh here? We have we have OpenAI API and then we have Gemini API. Yeah, like Mudit said, debugging issues can be posted on the Discord channel. So I'm waiting for Suraj and Vishesh. Do you have any doubt, Devansh, on the session?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much clear from my side. Uh, Actually, I was thinking like, but I'm not sure. Can you reveal that or not? But like, how is it different? Like, how do you manage the real time application from a like, sorry, the real time data from a implementation point of view? Like, can you share that information?
So basically, Pathway is a sort of framework that does not require any external orchestrator. It has a
Mm-hmm.
powerful Rust engine, built on which is responsible for processing the data in real time, and it's
Mm-hmm.
pushing it through all the steps of the pipeline which I showed inside one
Right.
single process or one single Docker container.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you don't need to learn Rust for understanding that. You are
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's exposed via Python.
Mm.
Great, Suraj. Yeah.
I think like it would be better if we ask the implementation with doubts on Discord.
Yep,
I
yep.
think if there are no other questions like related to the session, then I guess we can end.
Great.
Uh,
Thanks, guys.
yeah. So
By
it
the
was
way,
nice having you.
there. I'll also post a link where it is where you can read more about indexes and pathway. It is general indexes. It covers an element of incremental indexing, which basically revolves around the domain of dynamic updates. And then apart from that, um, in the bootcamp there's a bonus section which briefly covers this aspect, like like how it helps. But the key issues is mostly, in the nitty-gritty of it, how it is done. It is something which is relatively longer topic to discuss, but yeah, it is kind of covered there. Yeah. If somebody's interested, then they can go and read about incremental vector indexing in general. That's one of the things that were initially mentioned as a problem which would come up in production use cases. But what happens is, in many cases, RAG applications, they don't go to production itself. So they're stuck somewhere in the validation stage. So if it doesn't go to production, you would not even get the issue of the data source changed, and now how do you manage it? I mean, because that you will see once it has gone live, and you need to maintain it while the pipeline is already being used by people. That's where it kind of helps it. Yeah. And also, like, in terms of, I saw there were a couple of debugging related questions or doubts around code implement execution in front of you. So it takes a couple, like, okay, we'll check that, Samir. It takes time on a couple of areas. One, sometimes Docker image building could take time. Second, it's actually naturally difficult to resolve bugs right away if it is not something which is very generic. Okay, so it's best as on Discord. This being said, as Samir said that it's not yet resolved, so apologies for that, Samir. Like, honestly, thanks for keeping us on toes. I'll look at it. I think there's one by Tom Riddle that I remember I need to answer, but I don't know if that's you. So, but we will respond for sure. You can expect a response by the UD on that note.
I think there's one more question from SG. Like, can you share a bit about how I can automate insert into the vector DB through Pathways ETL connectors?
So usually one doesn't use pathways ETL connectors and then use a vector DB. That's a very suboptimal way to go about it, because you already have a in-memory vector store which is um, pretty scalable up to millions of docs. So don't need a vector DB in parallel. So I don't even know if it is used. But this being said, Pathway is used for ETL, so there would be some documentation around it. I'll have to check. If you can ask us on Discord, I can let you know. But this being said, I can very confidently say that that's relatively lesser optimal approach to go about it. Even in cases where Pathway is used with Llama Index or LangChain, that is because, let's say, a company's already purchased LangChain, or they've already purchased Llama Index. They've paid, let's say, thousands of dollars to them. Now, for them to go and now they need to justify the cost and use it. So in those cases, they will use Pathway only as a vector store. That vector store will take care of ingestion for sure, and also it will take care of incremental indexing and vector index management, which is what databases are used for. Yeah, it's interesting to understand that there's a small segment in the bootcamp as well around databases, like how they became popular. I mean, it's an opinionated stuff, but databases, they kind of became popular because recommendations and recommended systems were already there, and that's where vectors were being used. And RAG came in around 2020, so the natural choice for managing vectors in that case became vector DB. Okay, we want to manage it, let's go for vector DB, a dedicated DB for vectors. But over time, people have noticed that having a dedicated database just for managing vectors is not an optimal way to go about it. So that's point number one. So that's why, if you, let's say, even if you see something like Postgres, you'll have something like PG vector in it. So that's one thing. Second thing is, in memory. Initially, doing it in memory is always a de facto way that has been evangelized by everyone from Andrej Karpathy to someone like Jay Prasad, who was the head of AI of NPCI, who took a session. There's a bonus recording. So that was there, but the traditional dilemma used to be whether this is scalable or production ready or not. So if it is ready, then why don't you use it? That's the context. Yeah, if you are kind of using it with any particular stack, then you can ask. I think. Oh, by the way, there would be a document of for Pathway as a loader with Llama Index. I can share that one. If you can post it on Discord, I'll share that one. I think there is a documentation that I can remember on top of my mind. But yeah. Sorry for hijacking your session, Saksham and Devansh. I was listening it. It was quite helpful, actually. Just thought there are a few queries that I can I think I saw them somewhere, so I thought I'll.
I guess if there are no. Okay.
Okay, I'll post this thing that SG had asked from Llama Index documents. I've posted that. Hope this helps. Cool then. Thank you everyone. And yeah, if it has taken a bit longer for us to answer queries so far, so I'm apologetic for that. Thanks for your patience around it, and thanks for flagging it pretty much in the session itself. We'll address it. It's on me actually, but we'll do it for sure today. Thanks a lot. Yeah, thank you
Yes, I
everyone.
think. Thanks, section one, Madhu.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.